They said leave when they know they can. Yeah, but that's the point. To say leave when they know they can. To give themselves plausible deniability, to make it seem like they're doing something nice for them, like they're not just vaporize these people from the face of the earth. I've been waiting to put together the stories because I wanted to make sure that I got at least as reasonable information, as factual as I could for you guys before I started doing a bunch of stuff. There's been a wild and just like almost, in my opinion, almost unprecedented amount of misinformation that's been put out there and proliferated through so many people that I even know myself, that I feel like this needs to be talked about and this needs to be done now. Okay? So, as some of you have heard, some of you have not, Hamas, the governing body of the Gaza Strip in Palestine, in the Middle East, has launched an attack, counteroffensive, how you'd like to say it. There has been a mobilized effort to take back territory from Israel in a war for that land that both sides claim as their own. I would like to say here, before we start anything, the people of Palestine Palestinian people are not Hamas, and your average Israeli is not Netanyahu and the Israeli government, even though there are some people who overlap with their ideologies, obviously, for them to be elected leaders, but not every single decision they make is something that every single person decided to make themselves. With that being said, let's hop into a little bit of an explanation about what's going on in there.
Palestinian militants from the armed group Hamas launched a surprise coordinated attack on Israel by land, sea, and air on Saturday morning. With hundreds killed, the attack is the largest and deadliest in years and prompted an Israeli declaration of war. Here's how it unfolded. At around 6:30 a.m., the attack began with a barrage of rockets. Shortly after the first reports of rocket fire, Hamas fighters entered Israel near the Kerem Shalom crossing, an important checkpoint between Israel and Gaza. The video released by Hamas shows its fighters breaching the border fence and attacking the military base there.
A little bit of fighting, we'll take it off screen.
Around the same time, Hamas fighters also raided and captured Israel's Erez border crossing station. Targeting checkpoints like these enabled Hamas to neutralize clusters of Israeli forces and spread into nearby towns with less resistance. By 7:30 a.m., Israelis began seeing groups of Palestinian militants arriving in towns and cities. The incursion fanned out into 9 towns near the border with Gaza.
So a lot of these settlements used to be a part of the Gaza Strip, or Palestine in general, that have been occupied and are now being occupied by Israel and the Israeli government. You see a lot of things like the Israeli government moving Israelis into homes owned by Palestinians to then claim ownership of them as a creeping incursion onto Palestinian people and the land that they have. Not to mention that, and we'll go into this a little deeper, that the Gaza Strip is just a massive open air prison, one of the densest places in the entire world, with a 50% unemployment rate, and that's kept as just a apartheid state, helping cement Israel as currently one of the worst. 2.5 million, I think, half of which are also children, cementing Israel as one of the worst current states engaging in human rights violations that we've seen in the modern age, just kind of period, right? At least one that you would like know of off the top of your head. Moving on from this, when they said land, air, and sea, they really meant it. And a lot of places, a lot of paratroopers were flying down from planes, from helicopters, straight up into Israel, so they wouldn't have to cross some of those borders. Your average Palestinian may have crossed into some of those places to take back some areas directly next to the Gaza Strip and right outside of the fences and walls that Israel put up to keep them in that prison. And I keep saying that, and I want to get into what I mean when I say that, and we can get into another explanation of what exactly I mean. This cannot be in a completely extensive review of the history of Palestine and Israel, But I do want to talk about some important things here about the human rights violations that are going on and what this means and the conditions that led to this situation in general. Because a lot of people are going to tell you things like this is unprovoked. A lot of people don't hear about this a lot. There are like human rights violations and that are going on across the world, like Saudi Arabia to the Yemeni people, China with like Tibet and Xinjiang, just all across the world. But this was the one that we're talking about today. Let's learn a little bit.
The Gaza Strip is only 25 miles long and about 5 miles wide. 2 million Palestinians live packed into this tiny space, one of the most densely populated places in the world. Half are children. Many live in refugee camps speckled throughout the besieged territory. A stunning 80% of the population relies on foreign aid. Aptly called an open-air prison, there are only 2 ways to leave the enclosed area: the Erez crossing into Israeli territory and the Rafah crossing, which goes to Egypt. Both are completely controlled by hostile militaries.
Southern border is controlled by Egypt. Every other border is controlled by Israel, including the sea.
Israel calls a border is actually a heavily militarized perimeter fence comprised of barbed wire, surveillance networks, and lethal no-go zones. If you roam too close to the so-called no-go zone, which extends 300 meters out from the fence, Israeli forces have authorized themselves to shoot to kill. Thousands of unarmed Palestinians have been shot for violating this rule in 2018 alone. The same goes for Gaza's coastline. It is the only place in the world where you can't even flee by boat, as refugees elsewhere often do. Fishermen are restricted to only a few nautical miles from their shore. Straying past that, even by accident, you can be blown out of the water by Israeli warships. A massive seawall in the north and south, currently being extended, boxes them into their small sliver of sea. This violence is compounded by an economic blockade that imposes a chokehold of poverty on Gaza, resulting in one of the highest unemployment rates in the world, according to the World Bank. 70% of the youth are unemployed, with 52% for the general population.
So, just so you understand everything, they can't leave. No one can really come in. They can't even leave by sea, or else they'll be shot out of the water by the Israeli military. And this has been going on for years, about 50 years. And in 2006, the government that we're going to be talking about today in the Gaza Strip, Hamas, who the Israel, the United States, and I think UK categorized as a terrorist organization, by their own words, was voted in as a reform party to change the situation that's going on. And I'm going to tell you this right now. I believe in freedom for the Palestinian people. I think if you're somebody who believes in freedom for the Ukrainian people against Russian imperialism, you should 100% believe in and support the Palestinian people against Israeli imperialism going on there, because it is very real and happening and has been happening for years. Ever since the 1940s that this has been going on. And once again, we can't go through everything in the entire history. If you want to know a little bit more about that, we have another video that we put out. You can check it out here, of the last video that we did when tensions were sparking up in this area. Once again, if you would like a little bit more on that. But that's the grounds for where we're working right now to understand what's really going on here. Because you'll see a lot of people use this word, unlike me, and some of our elected officials keep saying things like, this is completely unprovoked. I condemn Sherrod Brown. I condemn the horrific, unprovoked attacks on the Israeli people. John Fetterman, I forcefully condemn these cowardly, horrifying, unprovoked attacks on Israel by Hamas. Senator Chris Coons, I unequivocally condemn Hamas's unprovoked invasion and attack against Israel. Now, is Hamas good? No. But do I expect people who are kept in an open air prison, slave camp, who are routinely bombed day in and day out by Israeli forces, like shooting fish in a barrel? Let me remind you, only one of these states is backed by one of the strongest militaries in the world. Only people in one of these places have the ability to move freely outside of their land. Gaza doesn't even have an airport, like a real airport. Only one of these people have an Iron Dome. Only one of these people's lands keep just getting smaller and smaller, and only one of these people are suffering one of the greatest humanitarian injustices in the entire world that we've seen since the 1940s, at least in what we would call a developed nation. And a lot of people, and I'm going to tell you this now, you're going to hear a lot of bad things that Hamas has done in this video, and they have done it. Okay, I'm going to tell you this right now. There are a lot of lies and things that they have not done that I haven't been able to find any credible evidence of them doing. But I'm going to tell you this now, that they've done bad things, and I don't expect them to be this perfect resistance force. I think that there's a lot of extremism and extremists in there using the antagonism that Israel has founded for their own personal gain to do in other human rights injustices. That being said, I feel like it's only one-sided where we sit here and talk about extremism as on only one side, the Palestinian side, and in the Gaza Strip, and we don't talk about the extremism inside of the Israeli government and is in the Israeli people as well. It's insane to me that we don't do that. When in the last video that we talked about this, one of the elected officials in the Israeli government was talking about the straight up extermination of all Palestinian people, period. You're going to be seeing now and in the future people who claim to be standing up for Jewish people and like Israeli safety and independence, calling for straight up genocide of people in the Gaza Strip. And they're going to be calling for the straight up genocide of people inside of Palestine and who call themselves Palestinian in any way, shape, or form. And I'm going to tell you this right now, only one side actually has the possibility of being able to do it. Only one side has the means, the power, the man force to actually make good on those promises, and it's not the people in the Gaza Strip, and it's not Hamas. And that doesn't make anything that they do good, but I think we should understand what's actually happening here. Because when these types of attacks flare up, when fighting starts happening in this conflict, I'm going to tell you this now, it's usually not Israelis who are usually on the receiving end of this type of violence. They're simply not. Ever since this conflict began, Palestinians are the ones who suffer more and greater than your average Israeli does. And the death tolls and the injury tolls just tell it directly. You can see here in 2018, where there was a Gaza Strip uprising, 31,000 people injured, only 130 on the Israeli side. If this is a war, then who's really winning? It's really hard for me to just straight up call this a war. It just seems like destruction. Just complete destruction. These numbers, these ratios are comical. It's hard for me to call this anything besides just closing in on genocide. And this is why I call, and many other people call, Israel a genocidal apartheid state. And I think there's like the real two genders. You believing that Israel is a genocidal apartheid state, and you loving genocidal apartheid. And that's just kind of it. That's it. And one that we personally fund. That being said, to put some real numbers to this and not just bars, okay? The United Nations Office of Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has been tracking deaths in the conflict since 2008, and the data shows that 5,600 Palestinians have died up to 2020, while 115,000 were injured. 250 Israelis died in the same period, while 5,600 were injured. This is very hard for me to tell. This is very hard for me to say that this is not one-sided. In most every category, there is almost nothing that they can do. Almost nothing that they can do to actually harm a lot of is like your average Israeli person or the government in general. They just don't have the means anymore. They're just fish in a barrel for Netanyahu to shoot whenever he feels like it to raise his approval ratings in a state that's already conditioned to hate these people and think of them as the enemies, as murderers, as people who are barely deserving of any moral consideration. And that's just true. Is that everybody in Israel? No, absolutely not. Do you even know if it's the majority? I don't. But what I do know is that it's enough to keep people like Netanyahu in office, who keep this open air prison going, who keep this occupation going.
Jacob, you know this is not your house.
Yes, but if I go, you don't go back. So what's the problem? Why are you yelling at me? I didn't do this. I didn't do this.
But
It's easy to yell at me, but I didn't do this.
You are stealing my house.
And if I don't steal it, someone else is going to steal it.
No one is allowed.
If I don't steal it, someone else is going to steal it. And this is the slow creeping, less violent form of war, occupation, humanitarian crisis that a lot of people it's very easy to overlook because not as many people die and it doesn't look as bad. Is it as good? No. But I would argue that this is equal. The slow erosion of people into simply just nothing, and the purposeful, I would easily say cultural genocide of these types of people is just something that I cannot overlook. Okay, and a lot of people will tell you that it's a complex issue. It's a complex issue. I could say it myself, but I'd love the words of our dearly departed Michael Brooks to tell you about how complicated the situation actually is.
It's not a complex issue. That's the big thing. It's super simple. There's one group that has enormous power. It's the most powerful country in the Middle East. It's backed by the United States. It acts on another population of people with total impunity and is never held accountable for anything. So there's no symmetry in the relationship, period. And just as like a thought experiment, IDW people, if we know that if somehow a population of Jewish refugees ended up in West Bank and Gaza, and an Arabic government in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv had an open air prison in Jewish Gaza, which they bombed with white phosphorus, they killed civilians indiscriminately, and they had no provisions for medicine. They had an embargo that blocked food, that electricity wasn't running, that there was an over 48% unemployment rate, life expectancy and malnutrition statistics were horrifying. One of the major policymakers in this hypothetical Arabic Palestinian state said, we need to put those Jews on a diet. In the West Bank, there was another Jewish area where there was a little bit more autonomy, but there was regular Arabic settlements where they pulled up the Jewish farmers' foods, they terrorized them with rocks, the security forces broke children's bones, and they couldn't drive on their own roads. We'd all have no problem understanding what that was. So there's nothing complex about it. The second part of your question, it's a pure asymmetry relationship.
Pure asymmetrical relationship in every way, shape, and form. And that asymmetry and that dehumanization leads to more violence. Violence just simply leads to more violence. If it's a more slow, creeping, less in your face and nasty, harder to justify violence, that doesn't mean that it's not violence at the end of the day. And that doesn't mean that it won't lead to a nastier form of violence in the future. And the Israeli government is fine doing that because they know there's nothing that people like Hamas and them can really do to challenge the structure of power that they have. They're backed by the strongest military in the world. They are the strongest military in the Middle East, period. Don't they have nukes as well? Like, what is any other country to do? They can literally do whatever they want. They have complete impunity to do whatever they want. And so they do whatever they want. And so they are able to keep 2.5 million people in an open air prison for years, maybe even decades. Israel has nukes, yes? Yes. And with this being said, remember how I talked to you about this type of rhetoric. You'll hear a lot of things about rhetoric from Hamas, like death to Israel, and calling for a lot of the things that I can't even repeat on the stream. It's still true for Israel as well. This is the leader. This is the leader of Israel at this moment in time that vows a mighty vengeance after the surprise attack, that vows a mighty vengeance against these people. And he went on further to say, Netanyahu has declared a state of war and has called up the military reservists, promising to fight Hamas to the bitter end. He told the 2.3 million Palestinians in Gaza who are under an Israeli land air, and sea blockade to leave the territory immediately. They have nowhere to leave. They have nowhere to go. I've heard that this also could be a mistranslation. He means like leave there immediately, like some places that they plan to bomb. I'm not sure exactly. He wants them to leave. They're once again trapped in an open air prison. There is literally nowhere for them to go. And if they try to escape, they will be killed. So it's stay and be killed, or leave and be killed. So the choice is up to you. He went on to say, "We will take mighty vengeance for this black day. We will take revenge for all the young people who lost their lives. We will target all of Hamas positions. We will turn Gaza into a deserted island. To the citizens of Gaza, I say, you must leave now. We will target each and every corner of the strip." They said leave when they know they can't. Yeah, but that's the point. To say leave when they know they can't. To give themselves plausible deniability, to make it seem like they're doing something nice for them, like they're not just wanting, not like they're not just at least have it in their mind to want to completely evaporate these people, vaporize these people from the face of the earth, when that's absolutely exactly what they plan to do if they could get away with it. And in some instances and in some ways they can. And right after this was said, 800 Gaza targets were hit and hundreds of fighters were killed, says Israel, as death toll from Hamas attacks climbs. Both on both sides there are deaths. As far as I've seen, the entirety of the death toll at the moment, the entirety of the death toll as of
is very real.
21 hours ago, because this is a still moving and developing story, was 1,100, which is absolutely horrible. It is disgusting and terrible. And like I said, I support Palestinian people and their right for freedom. I do not support Hamas and kidnappings or any civilian murders, executions, tormenting that has happened. That has happened. That is real. There are a lot of things that a lot of people are saying that isn't real. But a lot of things are indeed real. And we'll talk about some of those now. There are reports of Hamas killing 260 Israelis in a festival in Israel that paragliders went down on. I haven't seen like any actual reporting on that. Just the Israeli government has just said that happened. If that like develops to be true or false, we'll talk about that sometime. But as far as we know, we don't know. I'm not sure, but Israel has said that. I will say that. Hamas and Palestinian officials have also claimed hundreds of deaths on their side, which makes a lot of sense because after this was said, like I said, Israel then cut off the electricity, fuel, and goods to Gaza, which they have, mind you, complete control over at all points in time. Israel has complete control over all of the utilities inside of Gaza to an inordinate degree that's hard to even wrap your mind around. They can shut almost the entire place off at a whim whenever they feel like it, and they have shut down. The Jerusalem Post reports that they have shut down all electricity and fuel and goods, including food, into Gaza, period. Mind you, 80% of the population relies on foreign aid for them to eat at all. So that's what's going on at the moment. After that, Israel then began to Netanyahu began to make good on his promise and begin to level Gaza. This 11-story building with 100 apartments in it was I don't need to explain it. I can just show it to you, right? Was razed to the ground. I think many people are saying this is the second largest building in Gaza. I haven't been able to fact check that. I know it's an incredibly large building in a place like the Gaza Strip. And so that's what they did right after that. Hundreds of people are now homeless. Was this completely used? Was this used as a Hamas? Was this used as a Hamas headquarters? Well, seeing as that a lot of people who are working for Hamas are just people, sure, somebody in there probably supported Hamas. I would imagine so. If that's going to be your criteria, saying that they're hoarding all their weapons and everything in there and taking this down will substantially harm Hamas, I haven't seen any proof to show that as true at all. And so that's what's going on now. And I'm of the complete opinion that at the moment, Israel will now attempt to engage in at least partly the complete destruction, the complete destruction and evaporation, vaporization, leveling of all of the Gaza Strip, while people in the West and in other countries who fund this type of evil just squabble about who's really to blame in this situation, when it's very clearly not as complicated as a lot of people like to make you think that it is, to stop all conversation. People are dying, and they're going to keep dying, and it's going to stay that way, as many people in the West, Republicans included, are simply now calling for the just mass executions of Palestinian people, period, and/or the complete subjugation and revocation of like lands and history and culture in those lands, period, forever, with no recourse for any of the humanitarian crimes that Israel has committed. And I believe Hamas should be held responsible for any human rights violations and the many human rights violations that they have been a part of, as well as Netanyahu and the Israeli government as a whole, right? But you can't have an international conflict without our good friend of the stream. What is it? Huh? You guessed it. That's right. Misinformation. As this has been coming out, a massive misinformation campaign has been following it. There have been things like complete lies about what's happening, videos from other conflicts that are being put up here to make either side look bad, usually Palestinians and Hamas. Arma 3 video game footage to try to make Hamas look good or look like they've taken down way more Israeli American equipment that has actually happened, like the usual. Not the Arma 3. Yes, the Arma 3. Yes, the Arma 3 lies are back. I'm not lying to you. Videos on Twitter right now with 600,000, sometimes millions of views of Arma 3 with Israel, Hamas, Palestine on it. New video, Hamas fighters shooting down Israeli warplane in Gaza. 600,000 views. 1,400 retweets. 250 bookmarks. People are passing this thing around like it's real and it's just video game footage. Arma again? Yes, Arma again. And there are many of these being passed around. Many of these being passed around, okay? When I tell you a lot, I mean a lot. It's so bad, in fact, that, who is it? Yup, you guessed it. Good guess. Elon Musk even fell for this. Remember how he said that he doesn't get his news from mainstream media anymore and he only gets his news from fucking Twitter? Well, it came back to bite him. It came back to bite him. Elon tweeted, "For the following war in real time, follow War Monitors and Scent Defender. They're good. It's also worth following direct sources on the ground. Please add interesting opinions in replies below."
Hi, quick editor's note. I just want to point out that it says options, not opinions. This is kind of important because he's not encouraging thoughts on genocide, more what places people can get news on Twitter from in regards to this. Shark misread it. I just wanted to set the record straight real quick. Thank you.
He's engagement farming on possible genocide. I would just like to let you understand that. I would like to have that sink in for a moment. So here's the account that Elon boosted. Okay, War Monitor. Mind your own business, Jew. Go worship a Jew, lil bro. Just crazy, remarkable stuff. Just incredible sources coming down here from Elon Musk, I must say. Sheesh. from the same accounts that he boosted, there was an obvious AI generated image posted in May depicting an explosion at the Pentagon. This would be easy to verify, but they simply just didn't. This Scent Defender posted a fake picture. Internal reports of a large explosion near the Pentagon complex in Washington. Do you guys remember this? I remember this. I remember this coming out. This could easily be figured out by like just Googling explosion Pentagon, but like it doesn't happen. It just didn't happen. They're just lying. And aren't these guys like a fuck, like these guys? All right, these OSINT Defender, aren't they like a parody account? And some people, like a lot of big media, posted this as well. I didn't see any big media share this. If you did, I'd love to know who. That's me. Honestly, same. I didn't see MSNBC, ABC, even Fox News or anybody else post this type of shit. It's only like weirdo Twitter users who post this type of stuff. I didn't see anybody post this type of stuff in like the mainstream media that's apparently supposed to be the enemy of the people or whatever. I didn't see any of them post this, but I did see both of the people who Elon Musk bumped posting it and saying that it's real and true. Real and true. Crazy. But after he learned that information on Twitter is actually not really worth that much, and some people may be like, but sure, you're always showing tweets. I show tweets just because they're easier visual tools for my videos. As you can see, I've been pulling up many articles to back up things that were posted on Twitter simply because a lot of them are just easy to show. I don't get my news from Twitter, okay? I get my news from news publications and journals. I don't get my news from fucking twitter.com, okay? Just so we understand ourselves here. I show tweets to help bolster my points, not make them. Okay? And if it's a tweet and I use it to make my point, it's posted somewhere. I found it somewhere else. It's just easier to show on Twitter or any other social media platform like YouTube, okay? That's where you should be getting your actual news from. But this guy was like, oh, wow, thanks so much for the support. Elon deleted it because he found out that he is actually low IQ. Okay? The War Monitor. All right. 20 martyrs, numerous families murdered in an airstrike in their home in Gaza tonight. This martyrs is not an objective or accurate word, nor is murdered. The former implies dying. Oh no, he's using the small amount of his brain that isn't rotted left to do the smallest amount of reading comprehension and like understanding bias. And he's like, wait a second. He's like, wait one god dang second. I don't think that this is good news. Neither of these accounts, just so you know, are on the ground in Israel or the Gaza Strip or anywhere. Neither of them. All right. Neither of them. And one of these guys was cracking jokes about Palestinians getting like bombed in their homes. Better find a boat and get swimming, but they can't swim because they're blockaded in the water as well and would be shot out of the water if they tried to leave. They can't leave, and he's just like cracking jokes about it. He thinks it's hilarious. And that's what Elon Musk has brought us so far, as he is completely fallen. He is completely fallen for his own bullshit. And the misinformation continues. In one instance, a widely circulated video of an Israeli airstrike that said to show the retaliation on Saturday's surprise attack by Palestinian groups and Hamas, which left hundreds dead, breaking Israeli forces striking terror targets in Gaza. Read the caption of the video, showed on Facebook and Twitter, but the video was actually from May. And numerous people on Twitter and TikTok shared videos of jets being towed on the ground, and they said that it was in Gaza. But the video, however, was posted last month, appearing on YouTube. There's like a crazy amount of misinformation going on, from video games to wars that are of this war, but like in the past, or of completely different wars. But let me tell you this, okay? You may be wondering to yourself, in this wild time of strife and also people looking for lots of information, you would think that terrible people would use this as an opportunity. And I'm going to tell you this now. They are.
Absolutely. I think this is a great opportunity for our candidates to contrast where Republicans have stood with Israel time and time again.
It's a great opportunity. The RNC, Republican National Committee chairwoman, says that this is a great opportunity. Thousands dead in their homes. Possible genocide at our heels. Many of us can only do is watch and engage in some form of BDS. It's a great opportunity. And let me tell you, Republicans never let a good tragedy go to waste. I talked to you about the Arma videos that are being put up. You'll hear things like this getting so many likes, 400, almost 500,000 views, lynchings, beheadings, torture, assault of the sexual variety, kidnappings, and still even people in the public profile cry resistance and freedom without any consideration to condemn Hamas, terrorists, or these crimes against innocent, young, old, black, white, and all in between. If you can show me any information of like lynchings, beheadings, torture, sexual assault as like a form of getting back as Israelis, you could let me know. I've been researching this for 2 days and I haven't been able to find anything on it. Okay. Now, I believe that there have been some lynchings. I can tell you this now, that when there's this much strife going on, especially people who are close to the Gaza border, the Gaza prison, I'm going to tell you now that there have been lynchings. Yeah, 100%. I'm going to tell you this right now. Yeah, 100%. And there have been kidnappings. Hamas has kidnapped a decent amount of people, as we know at the moment, and a decent amount of people have just gone missing, and a lot of people have attributed that to Hamas kidnapping people. But I'm not going to tell you now that any of those necessarily, or all of those are specifically directed by the Hamas government or anything. We just don't know. And people who are telling you that they do know are, what is it, chat? Lying. Thank you. Lying. There's been no information about this. Just so you know, if you see somebody posting information about this type of stuff with with nobody backing it up, nothing to back it up, I'm going to tell you this right now. They saw it in a tweet and they're lying. Okay? They're either parroting a lie because they feel like it, or they're doing a lie because they feel like it. Okay? It's one of the two. Remember those paragliders we saw? Once again, Hamas terrorists paraglide in Israel. They went door to door to massacre innocent children, sexually assault and murder women and children. The better part of 1 million views, and just no backing it up. It's just people are just fucking saying it. And on Elon's Twitter, on Facebook, on TikTok, on YouTube, on Instagram, people just are posting this. They're just posting it, leading to people purposefully being more okay with the idea of Israel just glassing all of Gaza, just wiping it off the face of the map, simply because they can. Oh, all of these people are simply evil monsters. What did Ben Shapiro say? Israelis like to build and palace and like the Arabs like to blow shit up and live in open sewage, even though they can't get out of the open sewage. You've kept them there. Chuck, I've heard Lonerbox and other people say that there was videos of a girl from a festival having her body paraded around by Hamas people and getting spat on. Yeah, there have been people who have been killed and kidnapped. Or yeah, there have been people who've been killed or kidnapped and like dragged around. There are videos of people from like near the Gaza Strip who have on the Israeli side who have been like taken into like custody, kidnapped, disappeared inside of Gaza. Yeah, 100%. I do not support any human rights violations. Yeah, and so that's why I don't, and that's why I speak against that, and that's why I don't support the Israeli occupation. That happened. I've seen that video. A lot of people are saying that she was like brutally gang assaulted by feral dog Palestinian subhumans or something. I've seen no information of that. I've just seen that she could have easily died in crossfire or something. Or somebody could have just purposely killed her. Who knows? I don't know. And you don't know either. So what I do know is that they're dead. And what I also know is that Ian Miles Chong should be somebody who belongs in federal prison. I'm going to tell you this now. He belongs in federal prison. A lot of these lies that are coming out are lies that are being bolstered by people like Ian Miles Chong. Okay? So Ian, remember how you heard the Hamas going from house to house, killing and assaulting people as they please? All right? Ian, this tweet, mind you, 24,000 likes, 12 million views. Hamas is now going house to house, butchering people inside, including women and children, taking shelter in their basements. Imagine if this was happening in your neighborhood, to your family, just literally stoking genocidal hatred out of fucking nowhere for Palestinians, just because he feels like it. I'm going to tell you this now. It's for clicks and engagement. Remember how Elon changed this app to be now, if you post the most vile, rage bait, lies, whatever, if you get views from other verified users, if you get impressions from other verified users, you're going to be able to get more money from it. So this guy is able to post on places like that, Facebook, TikTok, before he's gotten taken down, just these lies, simply because it is a bigger story for you to say something like this, even if it's a complete lie, that could easily lead to the deaths, lynchings of other people, simply because he wants to. The uniforms match those of Israeli armed police forces and special forces, and not Hamas. And do you know what his response to this was, this community note? He said the uniforms were stolen. They stole the uniforms. As you see, it's totally Hamas. Oh, they're in Israeli IDF uniforms? Well, actually, they're stolen uniforms and they're still Hamas. How do I know this? Per reports. Trust me, bro. As per reports. Trust me, bro. Many reports have said this. It is very... Source? Listen, chill. I've got engagement to farm. What do you mean? What do you mean, source? Who? What? Huh? He literally just makes shit up for his own personal gain. And the last thing is that Republicans are now, once again, using this as an opportunity. More mainstream Republicans are using this as an opportunity to simply stoke hatred against both Palestinians, but they never let a good opportunity go to waste. Not only Palestinians, but also Democrats in general, saying that we gave $6 billion in foreign aid to Iran, which then gave that money to Hamas so they could use it to sexually assault more Israeli babies or something. As we watch this horrible situation, Americans must face the truth. Our tax dollars funded this. Money is fungible, and many of the dollars we sent to Iran are being used to now kill innocent people. This must stop. All right. So all of these, Rick Scott as well, senator from Florida, Donald Trump as well, that criminal, soon to be homeless, jobless bum. Okay, all of them are coming out with this type of story. But let me tell you what happens when a Republican isn't speaking to their own bullshit echo chamber about this type of story. Okay, I want you to take a look at this right now and tell me that these are serious people that we need to, that we genuinely need to talk to.
And that to me is wrong.
But you would acknowledge that not a single cent of this has been spent, and nor has it been obviously used by the Iranian government, given it's still sitting in Doha.
I didn't say that it was. What I said was, and I said this 2 weeks ago when we had a hearing, that this was wrong.
Listen. I mean, I didn't say that. He did. He did say it. He absolutely did. He 100% said it. He knew he said it. And okay. All right. I think you need to leave office. I think you need to never be seen again. That's what I think personally. Maybe that's just me. At the end of the day, I wish for peace and freedom for the Palestinian people. I wish for safety for everybody in the region. And I wish for a resolution that isn't steeped in hatred and lies and bigotry for our own personal gain. And we could look past that. But what I really wish for is that my country and others like it stop supporting a genocidal apartheid state whose only goal with over 2.5 million people is to eventually wipe them off the face of the earth. And I know many people can sit here and say, oh, it's easy to talk. It's easy to talk about that from like the safety of America. And I will say, I guess, sure, that some people would say that they're happy that I guess they live in a country that I guess effectively wiped out its the population that they took the land from. Sure, I guess. But no matter what, it doesn't matter. What I think is that it's bad anywhere and everywhere. And it needs to stop. And simply because it happened in the past and not in the future doesn't make suffering and pain any less real and the subjugation any less evil. Hamas promotes terrorism. The Israeli government is a genocidal apartheid state. But only one side is backed by the largest government in the world, military force in the world. Only one side has a global apparatus to exert that force and not ever be held accountable for their human rights violation. Only one side gets billions of dollars in aid to uphold that occupation and apartheid. Only one side has an Iron Dome, and only one side has 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times the deaths than the other. And that side is not on the side of the Palestinians. Come here. Come here. Oh. Hi. Oh, sorry. I didn't see you there. If you're enjoying the content, hit the subscribe button. If you don't, it'll make Boo very sad. I know a bunch of you who are watching are not subscribed. Join the frenzy. You won't regret it. Thank you, Boo.